I'm Kara Ray, founder of Ambitious Moms Balancing Business and Babies. I'm a mother, a stepmother to 3 beautiful children. I'm a wife and a proud entrepreneur. I'm a mindset coach specifically for mothers who desire to strip the mom guilt and own their ambition in business and family life. The Powerful and Uncensored Mompreneur podcast is for the ambitious women and mothers who are ready to rise together and empower one another. Get plugged in each week for unfiltered and uncensored conversations between myself and industry leaders who support you, have unwavering points of view, and empower women to believe in themselves. We will be discussing business, spirituality, energy, strong points of view, manifestation, and what I like to call breaking the stigma topics. Conversations that will no longer be silenced. This is a safe place to reclaim your power of being a woman. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Powerful and Uncensored Mompreneur podcast. Today we're going to be diving into the delicate dance of our masculine and feminine energy and the roles they play in our day-to-day lives. So before we do though, I'd like to welcome my friend Olivia Celine. So welcome.
Hello, welcome. Hi, thanks for having me.
So Olivia is a business coach. She's also a wife, and she's a mama to the 3 of the cutest fur babies you've probably ever seen. Olivia also married her high school sweetheart, Joe, who also serves in the U.S. Army. Olivia is a business coach for entrepreneurial women desiring to upgrade their business to the next level while reigniting their passion in their relationship. So thank you so much for coming on here. Thank you for sharing this space. I'm so excited for this conversation. This is going to be a juicy one.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thanks for having me. This is going to be a fun time.
No problem. Yes. So before I start all of my interviews, I like to ask a question. So what is something that you are currently celebrating in your life right now?
Something that I am currently celebrating in my life. I just launched a new program yesterday. So I am celebrating all of the incredible women that have reached out, and they're some of the most badass babes on the internet. And we've been having so much fun jamming out in my inbox, trying to see if this would be their next best step. So I'm celebrating the launch and then just all the incredible women that it's attracting.
That's amazing. Plus, congratulations on, launching that, because it looks amazing and epic, and the women who are going to be a part of it are going to go through some incredible transformations. So it'll be amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
You're welcome. So, in regards to talking about masculine and feminine energy, so for our listeners, because I'm not 100% sure if all of them will really understand the difference between the two, do you think you could touch on the difference between a masculine energy and feminine energy just quickly before we really dive into some more questions?
Yeah, beautiful question. So the masculine and feminine energy is something I could talk on all day long. In fact, I basically teach an entire program around it. But the gist of it is that it's not gender-based. So the biggest misconception I see is a lot of people think like, well, I'm a woman, I'm feminine, and he's a man, he's masculine. But the truth is we all have masculine and feminine energy within us, and we usually have one that's a little bit more naturally strong. So for example, I'm a woman, but I have a very heavy masculine energy, and what that means is the masculine is the strong. It's that kind of unshakable. It's this very analytical, the numbers. It wants to know the 20-year plan. It wants to be that firm kind of grounded energy. And then there's the feminine energy, which is going to be that soft, fluid, still a powerful energy, still like that sovereign queen energy. She's the goddess. She's the one who trusts. She surrenders. She receives. She is in this like flowy, inspired, dreaming type energy. And so I, for example, as an entrepreneur, as most of us women are, we're hustlers, we're get shit doners, we grit, we grind, we do the damn thing. And while that's beautiful, that can be a very heavy, masculine, dominant energy. And in true form, the magic happens in business, the magic happens in life, in partnership, in relationship, in sex, in the feminine energy, which allows us to lean back and allows us to really be able to receive, to experience pleasure, to be tapped into our sensuality, our femininity, and it's able to dance with the masculine energy that our partner, even if you're in a same-sex relationship, our partner tends to bring. Is one of us is more masculine dominant, one of us is more feminine. we all have it within us, but it's like this pendulum that swings back and forth, and just asking yourself, am I more in my masculine right now, or am I more in my feminine right now? And how can I bring it back to center?
I love that. And I want to touch on that because you had chatted about this. It was a few weeks back. And this was a conversation myself and my husband had to have, because I find myself, I really sit in my masculine. And I never really understood or acknowledged that until I actually started listening to you speaking about it, actually. And then my husband was listening to one of you did it live early in the morning, and I was listening to it getting ready in the morning, and he's like, is this the woman you were talking to? Like, yes, it is. And so we had to have a good conversation, because I was sitting so much in my masculine that I was taking away from him, and I was in this like control state where he felt like he couldn't keep up. And so so I just wanted to touch on that. But so was there ever a situation in your life, Olivia, where you were continuously living in either the masculine or the feminine energy, and what sort of impact did it have on your life, positive or negative?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. So for example, so kind of telling you, like I just mentioned, I'm very heavy masculine. And while that's a beautiful thing in business, and it was able to, I believe is a big reason why I was able to get shit done and build multiple businesses, to be very successful no matter kind of what was thrown my way. Because it's that, like, I see the like long-term plan. I know I'm in it, I'm grinding, I'm doing it, and I'm showing up no matter what. It's that hustle in me. I'm like I used to brag about how busy I was. I used to brag about how I didn't sleep, and I'll sleep when I'm dead. And that was my strategy. And it eventually led to burnout, right? It eventually led to exhaustion, and there was nothing left in my tank because I wasn't inspired, right? That feminine energy is the inspiration. She's the creative one. She's tapped in, and she's the one who's actually able to receive the success. She's the one who's able to receive the abundance. And so what happened was, because kind of backing up, in a relationship, even if it's, if it's opposite sex or same sex relationships, like I said, there's always a more masculine, there's always a more feminine in each relationship. Because polarity is what drives the world. It's what makes the world go round. There's a morning, there's an evening, there's a sun, there's a moon, there's a yin, there's a yang, there's a Shakti, there's a Shiva, there's the firm, there's the fluid. We need it all to make the world go round. We need polarity. And so in a relationship, to make it work, there needs to be polarity. And you think about it as two sides of the same magnet are going to they're going to not come together, right? They're going to like resist each other. They're going to rival. They're going to see who's the stronger one, and they're going back and forth, and you're trying to get them to touch, but they won't touch. And that's what I see happen in a lot of relationships with very masculine dominant women, is that in business, we have this boss, this get shit done mentality. We bring that home. We rival it with our husband or with our spouse or our partner, their masculine energy, and nothing is productive. And we end up not having any sexual chemistry. There's not any like inspiration in the marriage. There's not any passion or fire or excitement, because we're rivaling them. We're like trying to see who can, have the bigger balls. And it's like this whole thing. And so for me, what I found is I had to really tap into that feminine to bring that home, because when I wore the masculine hat in the bedroom, for example, is a prime example for me. Like I was just like in sex, for example, I'm in there and I'm like, okay, this is on my to-do list basically mentally. And I'm like, I got to get shit done. I got to do the damn thing. I've got to, make sure he's satisfied, make sure he receives pleasure, make sure he's taken care of. I did my wifely duty. Now I need to go cook dinner, and I need to get on a call, and I need to do the things. And then I'm getting back to work, and I'm not in a pleasure receiving mode. And so we would just fight. Like I wasn't able to experience pleasure. Therefore, I don't feel like I was living to my fullest potential. I feel like the magic, the light was missing, because I wasn't turning it on, because I wasn't allowing myself to even experience pleasure in the bedroom. So for example, is I had to start, okay, how can I then bring the femininity home and into the bedroom so that I can experience pleasure, and we can dance this delicate dance, like you said so beautifully, this delicate dance of polarity where we're two sides of a magnet that are opposite, and we beautifully come together and we make a whole. And so that for me was like, okay, I tapped into my femininity. I became aware of the pleasure. I became aware of the trust. I became aware of the surrender. I became aware of the soft every now and again. I became aware of how can I be present here and slow down and receive and be in that mode. And it turned him on more. I enjoyed sex. He enjoyed sex. That translated into every single part of our relationship. It came into my business. It allowed me to receive more abundance in my business. And now I can be very aware of, okay, when does my masculine need to step in? And when does my feminine need to step in? And how can we dance between the two versus just be one or the other? Does that make sense?
Oh, it 100% does.
Okay.
Because even myself and my husband, we are very open about talking about sex and about pleasure and what we want, what we don't want, what we like, what we don't like. We are very open about that. But for a while, we stopped doing that. We became so focused on our family and everything else that was going on in life that literally when we were having sex, it was just, as you were saying before, I was like, okay, I need to have sex. I need to do the deed. I need to make sure he's good. Then I need to go make breakfast. I need to go do this. I need to do whatever. And I was not allowing myself to feel pleasure or allowing myself, because there was another thing I wanted to talk about and I wanted you to touch on, because you said it so perfectly when you said going from your head to your heart. And I never fully understood what that meant until I allowed myself to open up to receive pleasure in that way. And so I would really love for you to touch on that note, because I think that is just something really juicy that people need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So the masculine is the head, right? Like it's the analytical, the facts, the logic. It's very like, okay, does this make sense on paper? And then the heart is the feminine. You can do it like heart, intuition, your soul, your womb. All of those areas are all considered kind of dropping into that heart space, but it's all that feminine. It's the intuitive space. It's the one who it's the calm and the knowing. Like she doesn't waver. She doesn't have fear. She doesn't think logically. She just knows. And so when I was able to go from logic and drop into how am I feeling here? What do I need? How am I being nourished? How am I nurturing myself? You know, what's coming through for me and trusting myself, that was able to like change the name of the game, because entrepreneurship doesn't make sense on paper. You know, being a mom, I mean, I'm not a mom, but like for my friends that I talk to, my clients I talk to, that doesn't make sense on paper. Like there's not a one size fits all. It's not a, here's the plan to raise your kids to be perfect. Here's the plan to have the perfect business. Here's the plan to have the perfect marriage. It comes from an intuitive space that dances with, you know, the facts. And like, you know, I believe in goals. I believe in strategy, but I also believe in intuition and spirituality and the soul work as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. And so I love how you brought up, you know, being a mom and not being a mom and all these different things. But I think directly speaking to the moms who'll be listening on to here too, is that for the longest time, I kept thinking that my kids had to come first and that our relationship was coming second and that I was coming third. And there ended up being no balance between either. There ended up being arguments and frustration, and there was no alignment in anything. And we were just feeling overwhelmed and burnt out until we actually sat down. And I said to him, eventually our kids are going to leave. It's going to be me and you. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we are both happy in the bedroom, in our business, with what we're making, with what we're doing. And I remember when I first talked to him, he didn't really understand the correlation between business and pleasure. He's like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And then once we actually started communicating about it, and then he saw that I was taking the breaks, I was taking care of myself and putting him first too, that I was also being successful in business. And it was just something that really turned him on in a different way, where when he sat down and talked to me, he was like, I didn't know how well these two could come together, or how powerful I could see you take that back and then show up in the bedroom even that much better. And so when I decided to step into being an entrepreneur, that was a whole game changer for myself too, because there was a freedom there and this sense of empowerment that I gave back to myself, which I then took back into the bedroom.
Well, exactly. And it's not about I'm not saying the feminine soft energy in the sense of like, you need to surrender and always be submissive and like bow down to your man. I don't necessarily believe in that, but it is like that. Like you said, it's this empowered, this queen, this confident calm of sovereignty. That's like, I'm here. Like, cause in all honesty, like we inspire men through everything we do. Like in every single fairy tale story and every single story you ever read, it's always the woman that does something or shows something or says something or breathes something, or she smells a certain way that like men turn their heads and they look at us and they're like, there's something about her. We can't put our finger on it. There's an energy about you. And men experience life through us. And so we literally have the power to bring a man to his knees, like in that moment, just with the way that we're carrying ourselves. So when your husband sees you in this like powerful, but you're still giving him room to rise as well, like the rise of you is the rise of him, and you're inspiring him, and he's mirroring that growth and he's mirroring that power back, and you guys are having this beautiful dance of it. It's incredible what happens. Like, he doesn't need you to necessarily bow down to him. He doesn't need you to no one wants to have sex with someone who's not enjoying it. Like when you're turned on and you're receiving pleasure and you're experiencing that moment and you're in full orgasm, he's like, oh my God, even more turned on. So I think that that's such a powerful piece you said of, you took care of yourself. You put yourself first, because I do believe we have to be whole on our own to really amplify the magic that happens in a marriage and in a partnership. We both need to be whole. We both have our own purpose. We both have our own power in our own ways. And then we come together and it's like this beautiful kind of polarity dance, magic, juju that happens together.
Yeah. Well, and then even still touching on that, my husband didn't fully understand what I was stepping into when I decided to just become an entrepreneur. Yeah. He had told me before that he had this idea of me being a stay-at-home mom and not having to work. But I told him, that's not what I see for myself. I still want to be a provider, and I still want to work, and I still want to, do my thing. And I respect that that's something you want, and I don't mind being home, but this is my version of me being home. And I worked very well with him. And when he first didn't understand it, he's like, I don't get what you're doing. Why did you hire a coach? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? He supported it, but he never understood it. And then he said it honestly so perfectly. He said, you were like a mystery. He said, one day my wife was lost, and the next day my wife literally found herself, and I still didn't get it, but I watched the switch happen. Yeah. And he's like, I watched you and I paid attention to you. And he's like, I started watching my children paying attention to you and the words you were speaking and the people you were talking to and just how you were talking to everyone. Like it was like a huge shift. And so and I love that my husband touches on that and he talks to me about it, because before he didn't talk to me until I literally would sit down and ask him a million times over and over again, what's wrong? And finally I said, I'm not going to keep asking you if you're not going to tell me, and I can't help you and I can't fix something or work with you on something if you're not going to communicate. And he ended up telling me that sometimes I was a little, in his face about things, but wasn't intentional, but I was definitely very much in this controlling state where other things in my life weren't going right. And so I felt like I could control him in some way, and that just did not work. So once all these switches happened, it was this big, holy shit, aha moment in our relationship. And so even now talking to him back, I'm like, that was huge.
You need to have him on the podcast. This is powerful. And Joe and I had the same conversation. He was like, when you came home in this like masculine state, he was like, it's like you took my balls away. Like, I don't want to have sex with something that like, deflates my confidence. It makes me feel like a piece of shit. He was like, I love you. But he wasn't turned on by that, and men desire, just as much as we feel like we need to be needed and wanted, like men desire to feel needed and wanted and cherished and valued, and they want a place. And if you can handle it all and you got it all and you're like doing all the things and you're Miss Independent, which is beautiful at times, but all the time, and your man doesn't have a place to fit and to be the man and to do the things that he feels called to do and have a purpose in that relationship, he's not fulfilled, he's not happy, and he's not at his peak, and he's not, at his best. And then therefore your marriage isn't at its best either.
100%. And even I asked him a question once, because I personally felt like I was closed, but I never actually, opened up to the idea that my husband would also think the same thing.
Yeah.
And then I asked him one day and I said, do you think that I'm closed off, or I don't want to have sex with you, or that something's off? And he said, yeah, 100%. He's like, you continually push me away and I don't know why. And he's like, eventually I'm just going to stop.
Yep.
Because I don't want to continue being pushed away. And that was a big moment where I had to do some I had to look into what was actually keeping me closed and why. And these are past stories that I kept sitting on my chest and that I allowed, and I was portraying on him, and he's not that man. And so there was just, so that was a big one too. But oh my goodness, I could talk about that forever too.
Open, honest, vulnerable conversations, transparency. It's not fun, but if you're not, I just remember I had this conversation in my like free group on Facebook about like, how would you guys describe your sex life? And so many people were like, well, it's non-existent, or I'm not happy, or I'm not fulfilled, or it just is what it is. And it's been this way for so long. And all these things, like, say something. Stop waiting for him to get it. Stop waiting for him to know what you're thinking. Like, men don't know. The one thing Joe always tells me, my husband, as advice, like for anyone I talk to, is like, just say what you want. Just ask. Like, say the damn things that you're thinking. Because he's like, we don't know. We don't take hints. We don't understand. Like, we need it point blank. Like, here's what I want. Here's what I'm craving. Here's what I desire. Here's what's coming up for me. Here's what I'm feeling. And not in the way of like, okay, babe, here's all the things you're doing wrong. X, Y, Z, here you go. Here's a whole list. I need you to change these things. That's not it at all. It's going to him in this intentional, loving, nurturing, gentle space of like, here's how I'm feeling if I'm being totally honest and vulnerable. And he's most likely going to say, I feel the exact same way. Or like, yeah, I agree. I have felt something's off. And then you have this open conversation and you're able to change it from that space together versus both of you trying to figure out what the hell each other are thinking. And it just doesn't work. And it'll just lead you into a spiral.
Oh yeah. And I want to touch on that too, about just saying what you want. My husband has brought that up with me because he used the description of coffee. He's like, you ask me, do you want a coffee? And he's like, and then I say no, and you get pissed off that I didn't go because you didn't say you wanted the damn coffee. And I didn't. I was not, like, straight up. He's like, what am I supposed to do? Assume that you want coffee when you're asking me, and then you say, oh, it's okay. And then you stew and you get pissed off. And he's like, that, he gave like that example, but it was an example that really showed all these different sides of our relationship and how I was not just saying what I felt, saying what I meant. And we were doing this, like, we weren't talking to each other. We were trying to like talk over each other, and there was no communication. And so the coffee one just killed me every time when you talked to me about that. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That does. It makes so much sense. It really does. I'm really excited for you to have him on the podcast. But I also think what you said too highlights how I grew up, because my parents always put their marriage first as well. And as a kid, I hated it. I was pissed. I was like, wait, like, no, you guys are ganging up on us and it's not fair. And you guys get to be this united front. And then like, here I am and it's 2 against 1 and it's not fair. But they never wavered. Like, it was always them and then us kids. Do you feel like that has been huge for you guys and instrumental in raising your kids and seeing the difference that that's made?
Yes, 100%. Because, you know, my husband, he was previously married, and that relationship, it's a very different. They're both just like completely different relationships. And then his parents, you know, our parents came from 2 different, like, you know, sides financially. And so not that my parents didn't have money by any means, but they both, like Chris's mom and dad, they support one another. They talk to one another, they communicate, and they don't make decisions without, you know, being on that united front together. And the same with my parents. When I grew up, well, my stepmom and my dad, it would drive me up the wall when I would talk about something, and my dad would always take my stepmom's side. Now, I knew he did it out of love, and I knew he did it out of support, and she would do the same thing. It wasn't just he did it for her. They both did it together, and we were always just left in the dust because we were never right. Our parents were right. But there was that support there, and so there was even times, like, my parents are extremely supportive, and so are Chris's. And there was a time, though, that my parents wanted to put a lot of their opinions in our relationship and the way we were raising our kids. And I just had to have this conversation with them where I said, I respect you and I love what you did for me, but now I have to learn and do this for my children. And it might not look like what you did, but this is what feels right to us. And I remember when I had that conversation with my dad, I was shitting my pants, not gonna lie. I was like, holy shit. I am like, wow, I don't know what and he was so good about it. He's like, you know, fair enough. These are your kids. I need to stop. And he wasn't doing out of a space of anger. He was doing it out of love. But I was like, you need to back off a little bit because I need to parent the way I see fit. And you might not think that it's perfect, but it is the way that I'm parenting. So get over it.
Vulnerable conversations again. Yeah. Vulnerability and transparency and saying it as it is. It works every single time. No, those conversations are not fun. That I cannot, I mean, like you said, you were shitting your pants. Anytime I have a
Yes.
conversation with a client or a friend or my husband or my parents that makes me want to like throw up, there's so much freedom and liberation on the other side of that.
Oh, yes.
But you have to walk through it. And then the relationship, if it's meant to be a relationship in your life forever, then it's better on the other side. Otherwise, sometimes it leads to like breaking up with certain friendships and clients and certain things if it needs to be. But the freedom on the other side of it, the lightness, the expansiveness, the spaciousness on the other side is worth it every time.
Yeah. And even talking about, because you just talked about breaking up with friends, that is, you know, a space that I have literally just moving through where there's just, it's not in alignment with where I'm going. We don't want the same things. And it's not that we don't like each other, but our lives are just going in completely different directions. And I wish them all the best. But this had been something on my chest for months where I just felt like this, I don't know how to explain it. I just felt so off being with them anymore. And I even asked my husband the one day, I said, does this feel weird to you, or is this just me? Because this doesn't feel right anymore. And he said, no, I'd like to leave. Like, this feels so awkward. And I said, well, okay, we're done. And we made this decision that it was just not serving me anymore. And he was fine with it. He's like, yeah, it's okay. I'm not worried. But it was really difficult for me to make that decision to have that tough conversation and make that break. And it went really well, thank goodness, and both people were actually thinking the same thing, but it still doesn't change the fear behind it. And like, walking through fear is so important. That is something that I'm trying to embody, of walking through that and trusting those gut feelings, because they have never steered me wrong. Ever.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, I mean, all that fear is, like, something one of my mentors told me once that stuck with me is like, the only thing fear is just, it's like that little like beep, 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 like that warning light of like, you haven't been here before, uncharted territory. This is really scary. Like, we don't know how to handle this yet. And so like the head, the masculine is like, the ego, right? Where it's like, well, we know this, so go this way. Like, this is not scary. This is what we know. But the feminine, the intuitive, the soft, the fluid one is like, but I'm feeling called here and it's scary. So I'm going to choose to walk through the fear as well. And it's just realizing I've never been here before. I just have to write a story so I know next time I'm not afraid, because I know I can make it through.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I want to touch back on when we were talking about business and pleasure, because we were talking about relationships here and the female energy. And, you know, when you're talking to your clients or you're speaking or you're doing anything, what is the juiciest advice that you give to your clients in regards to really anchoring in their feminine energy?
Have more orgasms. Have more sex. Be present in sex. Allow yourself to receive. The reason that I say that is because that was one of the biggest, most instrumental pieces for me, transitioning from letting my masculine run the show to like still honoring my masculine. And that still comes through, especially like when I plan out my month, when I sit down and I figure out how I'm going to hit my next income goal. Like, there is some strategy there. There's some masculine there. But the feminine, she wins every time. She's just like, that wins every single time. So for me, when I was able to really start tapping into sex and not looking at sex as a chore, not looking at sex as a to-do, and not looking at it as how can I please my husband here, but how can I make the most of this experience for myself? Like, just challenge yourself, have a little fun with it, make it a game. How can I feel so present in this moment and experience the most insane amount of pleasure that like I'm changed on the other side of it? And I had the conversation with my husband. We literally were like, okay, babe, my coach says I need to start focusing more on me in the bedroom. And he was like, okay, you know, whatever, like, sure. So we started to focus on things that are easily forgotten when you're hurrying through sex. It's, you know, it's like we skip the foreplay when women actually need the foreplay to get fully turned on and in their most like ready and receptive state. So it was more so like slowing down, experiencing that. I played around with self-pleasure. I started rewriting the stories and the shame I felt around touching myself and experiencing pleasure myself and allowing myself to be in that space. And for me, like my husband's gone more than he's home, like he's deployed, you know? So I had to figure out how can I access this magic, this potent orgasmic energy power when he's not here. And for me, that was self-pleasure. I mean, you can experience it in multiple ways other than sex, but for me, that's one of my biggest ones. Like when I'm manifesting certain goals, even like I'm in that state of orgasm. I'm in that state of full surrender where I'm not experiencing any resistance. And I imagine, you know, these people coming into my business. I'm imagining the money flowing in. I'm imagining being at this next level. I'm imagining what it's going to be like to make this greater impact. And it happens. It's crazy. It's insane. So for me, yeah, I mean, have more orgasms, be more present, allow yourself to surrender, which takes practice. So again, make it a game. Tell your husband, we need to have more sex. Olivia said so. And we need to focus on me. And in turn, he's more turned on. And it's because you're not trying to rush through it. Now you want to experience it for a long period of time. And you want to like play around with how long can I last? How long can he last? And you guys make it this like, can we please bring some passion back into the freaking bedroom, even when you've been married for 100 years? Like Joe and I have been together for 11 years, married for 7 in January. And we have better sex now than we did when we first started dating. Like, you know, so allow yourself to have fun and experience pleasure and receive in the bedroom and surrender and just see like how much pleasure can I actually experience here. And it will not only affect how you show up in business, but it will absolutely affect your relationship as a whole as well and yourself.
Yes. And I want to touch on, you know, making it a game and making it fun and just like exciting things, because literally this happened literally like 3 days ago where my husband and I made this like decision together that we were signing a contract that we would make ourselves, that we were having sex every day for the next 30 days. Like no matter what, no matter if we were angry about something or frustrated, that we were always we were going to make it fun, and that we were going to experience adventure and be adventurous and play around. Because I told him, I said, I don't want to have a boring sex life, and I don't want to just do the same things over and over. I really want to get to know you, and I really want you to get to know me on those levels. And so I think he thought I was joking when I said I was writing a contract. I legit wrote a contract down, and it's really funny. I wrote like the funniest shit on there. And he was just like, wow, okay, you did that. And he was reading it and he's laughing. He's like, well, I am 100% signing this, because that means like we are for sure doing this.
Yes.
So
oh my God.
It made him excited for it. And we actually taped it on our mirror in our bedroom, so that we see it every day and that we're reminded of it every day, because it's something important to the two of us. And I told him, I'm like, no, we're going to put it on our mirror. And thank goodness my stepdaughter can't read. So she was like, hey, what is this on the I'm like, don't read it. Dear. Walk away.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. It's like, I ask myself this question all the time in sex, in relationships, in friendships, in business. Like, how can this be easier? How can I have more fun? How can I like enjoy this more? Like, why the hell do we make everything like a chore and a to-do, and it has to be hard? I mean, even the simple things like morning routines or spiritual practices, can we get off the pedestal of like, it has to be this way and I have to get it all done and I have to check it all off every day? Like, that's not how it should be. I wake up every morning, I say, what do I need right now? And I let that guide me. Sometimes I read, sometimes I journal, sometimes I go on a walk, sometimes I listen to a podcast, sometimes I sit down and I start creating. Like, whatever it is you need, that's your morning routine. Do those things.
I agree so much on that. I think we overcomplicate, you know, self-care, self-development, anything, even sex in the bedroom, whatever. We overcomplicate those things, and they don't need to be overcomplicated. And I love that you said it's what works for you, because every single person is different and we're all unique and we all need something different. And so you can't look at somebody's schedule and say, oh, I have to follow that. No, it's not going to work for you, because you're a completely different person. You're not the same person. You have different needs. So I like that you touched on that, because it's so important, because it does not have to be complicated. And if you don't know, there's so much out there for you to look up and know and become knowledgeable on that. So yeah, because I remember when I first dove into self-care, I was like, oh, I got to journal, I got to read, I got to walk, I got to do this, I got to do that. And I overwhelmed the shit out of myself, because I was like, what am I doing? Where I got so frustrated with journaling that I couldn't journal for like 2 weeks because it made me so angry.
I had a client that was like that. She was like, so I feel a lot of resistance around journaling. And I'm like, well, tell me why. She's like, well, because I have this specific thing I do every day. And I'm like, nix that. Exactly. Right there. Like, journaling isn't yes, like there's people that journal every day, and I would like to be one of those people, and I work up to it every day. But it's like, it doesn't have to be, well, I have to write 10 things I'm grateful for, and then I have to write 3 things I'm going to accomplish it, and then I have to write this question, I have to answer this thing. Like, it can be simply like sitting down and brain dumping on paper. It can simply be asking for something. It can simply be journaling about your desires, like whatever it might be. Things like a bath. Why are we overcomplicating a bath? Like, well, I don't have the specific rose petals, and I don't have the oils, and I don't have the salt.
Yeah.
And well, my kids are crying and all these things, like who the fuck? Oh, I mean, I don't know if I can swear here like that, but
yes, you can. It's uncensored.
Okay. Who the fuck cares? Just take the damn bath. Journal out your thoughts. Like, it doesn't have to be hard. And I say this with love because I am a type A where I used to stress myself out about it. I would stress myself out, and it took the reasoning, the intention right out of it. And we went right back into the masculine or right back into the head, and we got out of the heart.
100%. And I even found that when I started like just allowing myself to do what felt good and what I felt called to do that day, it wasn't stressful anymore. And I actually accomplished 10-fold of what I was accomplishing than when I was like trying to accomplish everything on a list. So now when I create a list, if I don't get it all done, I still am so proud of myself for accomplishing all those other things that I got on there, because I still accomplished them. Like, I think people forget to really like congratulate themselves or like in the things that they are accomplishing in a day. Because if you're a mom, if you are like an entrepreneur, whatever you're doing, if you're human, you're accomplishing things through the day. Yeah. So you should congratulate yourself for that, because some days can feel harder than others. But I have one more question for you before we end the podcast, because I loved when you were talking about your bitch had to come out and how the bitch had to come out for a little bit in your, like, I guess more masculine energy. And I just want you to touch on that a little bit, and why like the term bitch doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, where it can actually be super empowering for you. Yeah. And sometimes she does need to come out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think, I mean, any word, it doesn't have a meaning, we give it the meaning. So even things like the word fuck, we can make it this really bad word when really we're just giving the meaning to it. For me, it allows me to express myself. It's a word that we use in my house every single day. The word pussy, right? We're all like, oh my God, pussy, oh, ew. Like, and I remember I used to feel that way too. And then I realized I could rewrite the meaning of that word. And it simply is describing the vagina, but it's a less scientific way to say vagina. So for me, like the word bitch used to be this like, well, I don't want to be a bitch. Like, I don't want to be this, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be mean. And working with my coach, she was like, Olivia, like, you don't have a mean bone in your body, even if you tried. She's like, I honestly don't think you could hurt a fly. And I'm like, well, I don't want to come off as a bitch though. And she's like, well, why not? And because in my mind, I had made it out as like the bitch equals the mean girl. But again, like even the mean girl, you can give meaning to that. But it wasn't this like, I have to be mean or rude to be the bitch. The bitch can actually be this powerful, sovereign queen that I keep talking about, where she knows her boundaries. She doesn't put up with anybody's shit. She doesn't have to make anybody happy and people please. She focuses on her wholeness. She focuses on herself, her groundedness. She focuses on her. And then from there, you're able to serve at a massive level because you are all the way filled up. You are taken care of. You are full. You are fulfilled. You are living your purpose. You are whole. And so you're able to then give to other people as well. And so for me, the biggest reason that I talked about that recently is because for me, it had to come out through certain friendships, like you had talked about, you know, letting go of toxic relationships in my life and people who I loved, like family, people who I loved and adored, but I couldn't handle the way that they treated me anymore. And I realized that I was blaming it on them. Like, well, that's just who they are. And like, well, I can handle it and it's fine and whatever. And like, they keep saying it'll get better. And then I realized like, no. I need to stop allowing this to happen. And I need to draw a line in the sand and say, like, I am not available for these types of relationships anymore. I love you, but like, we're going to move our separate ways. And even if someone else thinks I'm a quote unquote bitch for that, oh, well, like, why does bitch have to be a bad thing? And I know my heart and I know my intentions. I know my truth. And my truth was that I can't do this anymore. And it actually will not only serve me to let go of this friendship, but it'll also serve them because I'm not showing up at my fullest when I'm not able to be myself and when I'm feeling drained by that relationship. So I think rewriting the meaning, that was very long-winded. Rewrite the meaning. Why does bitch have to be a bad thing? But B, it's like, be a bitch. Who cares? Like, you give meaning to it, and you can't control other people's perception of you. You know your heart, you know your intention, you know your truth, and you don't have to apologize for that.
Love it. And I want to touch on that too, because people used to call me, well, people still do actually call me intimidating. And I asked somebody the one time, what do you mean by intimidating? Because at first I was really offended by it until someone actually described it as, no, it's not a negative thing. She said, when I think you're intimidating is because you're so firm and know who you are and your boundaries and values, that I'm not around people that are this clear on who they want to be and what they want in their life. So sometimes it's intimidating, because she's like, I was not like that. And so I've had conversations with people where they're like, no, you're intimidating. You're intimidating. But I'm intimidating because I know what the hell I want. Like, I know what I want in my relationship, what I want in my family life, what my boundaries and my values are, because I'm really freaking crystal clear on that. And the same with how people, how they treat me. If someone is treating me poorly, I will only stand for a very small amount of that, because, and I will be very opinionated about how I feel, but in a very nice and mature way. And I've had to do that with a few different relationships in my life. And I love that you touched on family, because my belief of family is that it's not always DNA. It doesn't mean that they are blood. It is who you call your family, and who supports you, loves you, cares for you, encourages you, and pushes you to be the best version of yourself. That is who I believe my family is. And that has not always been what people quote unquote family. You know, my mom's side of the family, I never see them. They've never called me. Even when I've seen my great grandma, but that's because she makes the effort. She's the only person. And so I don't put effort where effort's not put back. I never do.
Equal exchange of energy and value. And it's this, I remember it, you know, the nice girl, quote unquote, nice girl in me, the one who people pleased, the one who let people walk all over her. She got me here. Like, she serves a place, but you know, to get to that next level, it required boundaries. It required firmness. It required that power, because then I give permission for other people to do the same for themselves as well. Like, and I think the biggest thing too is just that, you know, some people like the intimidating. Some people will be like, oh my God, that girl is so intimidating, and they'll be turned off by it because they don't know how to handle it. They don't know. They're like, they almost have this like jealousy complex of like, I wish I could be that powerful, but like, I'm terrified of it. So I'm just going to make it so that this girl's a bitch. She's intimidating. I can't handle it. But then the other half of the population is like, this girl's intimidating. She's in her power. Holy shit. Like, I wish I could be like that. I need to work with her. I need to be in her energy. Like, she knows what she wants, and she doesn't settle for anything less. Because I know that's been true in my life. There's people where I'm like, oh my God, she's such a bitch. Like, I would say that. And then I would start to get to know the person. I'm like, no, she just knows who she is. She knows what she wants. And she knows her boundaries. And I admire that now. And now that I'm in a different headspace, I'm like, I need to be around this girl more, because I want to be more and more like that, because then it gives permission for other people to do the same.
Well, and knowing your boundaries, you really you understand why certain things upset you and why certain things don't, because everything flows together. And if something's triggering you, there's usually a boundary that's being crossed in some way, shape, or form. And that needs to be like, you need to acknowledge that. Because the more you keep pushing those away, and especially in regards to, you know, sex with your husband, business and pleasure, you keep pushing those things away, and you're not actually going to sit down and have the conversations that you need to have, it's probably not going to get fixed.
It's going to explode. It's like pushing a beach ball down. You're like stuffing it down so far, waiting for it to go away, but you're creating resistance and heaviness and pressure that eventually like is going to get set off, and it's going to explode everywhere. But I think that that's the piece too. I feel like I should have mentioned way back when, but the correlation between the business and the pleasure is because think of yourself like in full pleasure experience. Like you're either like at the height of an orgasm or it's right after in the bedroom. And maybe it's with a glass of red wine, your kids just went to bed. You're like in your like zone of, I feel so freaking good right now. The kids finally went to bed. It was the longest day. I've got a glass of red wine. I've got a piece of chocolate, and I'm like fully enjoying every single piece of this pleasure. Like, this is amazing. When you bring that energy into your business, the game changes. Like that's the energy, that's that high vibe. It's that high vibration that people are attracted to. And your energy is everything in every piece of your life. And especially in this podcast for this reason, your business, like your energy either attracts or it repels. And so being aware of like, what's coming up for me here? How am I operating? How am I showing up? Like, what's my vibe? And every time I can go experience pleasure in some way, and I make that a part of like my daily rituals, my daily practice, I'm able to show up stronger in my business in that high vibe state, in this receiver mode, who's able to not only receive pleasure, but also receive abundance. And that means clients and money and ideas and abundance in all of the ways. So that is directly why they are related.
I also love that you went back and touched on that, because I was literally sitting here being like, I need to ask her this question. And then you just answered it. So
what was it? What was the question?
The question in regards to like, when you're in business and you're going through like a launch, if there's a phase where you literally need to be like in your masculine, but then you need to basically kind of do that switch and go back into your feminine to be able to receive that and to like receive the money and the abundance and like the clients and all those things. Like you can be in the masculine and the create and feminine at the same time, like your creative mode, but your hustle mode in regards to masculine, and get that shit done. But then when you sit back and it's there, you do need to step back into that feminine and receive and be able to receive that and open yourself back up. So you did touch on that. And I love that you did, because that was a question I had.
It's the being and the doing. The doing is the masculine, the being is the feminine. The being is just as important, if not more so. Like the spiritual has to be with strategy. The intuition, the inspiration has to be with the actually putting it into action. And so for me, I've found like in every launch and everything I've ever done in my business, when I can have both of those dance together and, you know, be in the end, like, so I do the things, I take the action, I co-create. But then I'm also deciding it's already done. I'm in the energy of already having what it is that I want and being in that high vibe state of like, duh, if it's for the highest good of all, it's happening, it's done. I don't have to stress about it. And then I can show up from that space. So like, doesn't matter what you do to get shit done. Doesn't matter how much you show up. If your energy is off, energy doesn't lie. People feel that. People don't buy from you. People don't join you. So every single one of my clients, it's like, yes, we're going into strategy, but it's also like, well, how do you feel? Where's the resistance? What's happening here? You know, what's the vibe that you're in? Because that will like, that you're never going to get anywhere if you just hustle. It won't be sustainable.
100%. And you need to get really clear on yourself and even what's happened to you previously. That's not what the future. I think everybody keeps working towards this future, but the future isn't there yet. And so like people need to remember that in the present and now, you need to be open and vulnerable and honest in who you are right now to be able to step in and move forward. That was something I had to work through and embody. And oh my God, it hit me like a freaking ton of bricks where I was like, I did not know that I was pushing away so many things. And once I started really going through them and processing them, like I remember I was talking to Autumn and she's like, holy crap, like this is all coming up for you. And I was like, I broke, like I literally broke into tears because I didn't realize how much I was pushing myself down, my value down, and all the things that I cared about in my relationship with my family. I was just hiding them to please so many other people. And so there's so much power and there's so much freedom when you actually just reclaim yourself basically. And you're like, no, I'm important. I'm unique. I'm special. And I am deserving of this abundant freaking life. So
and you allow yourself to be a human having a human experience, and you don't try to be the hustler boss babe that gets all the shit done. Like that's beautiful and that serves its place, but the human comes first. I'm a woman first. I'm a boss second. You know, I'm a woman first. I'm a coach second, and honoring that and allowing yourself the space to navigate it.
Yes. And I think the universe, like I believe in the universe, and I believe that if you keep pushing things away, it's just going to keep coming back in different situations in your life until you process it.
What you resist persists. It'll keep coming back till you learn the damn lesson. It'll knock you out. Like, you know, what do they say on our podcast? We talked about it. And she was like, it's like the universe knocks you out with the 2x4, knocks you down because you're not learning the lesson. So it forces you into it again. So trust the process, lean into it.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. This conversation was incredible, and I'm so grateful for you to come on here. But before we leave, where can all of our listeners find you?
Well, first of all, what an honor. This was amazing. This was such a fun conversation. We went to all the places and talked about all the things, which I am here for, obsessed with it. So yes, thank you for having me, Kara. Thank you, listeners, for hanging out with us for this last, I don't even know how long it's been, but thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. You can hang out with me. Everything's kind of housed on my website, oliviaceline.com. You can find me in all the places there and all the things that I offer. But you can also hang out with me on Instagram at Olivia Celine, and on Facebook, Olivia Celine, and my podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, which is Soul in the Raw Podcast.
Yes. Okay. Can you please repeat your Facebook community? Because for some reason it like stopped. And so I want to make sure that people actually catch that.
Yeah. So my Facebook community is Facebook. Just go to Facebook. I don't think it has a link, but go to Facebook, search in the search bar, Millennial Business Babes Unfiltered.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was heard because it stopped.
And it's on the website.
I'm like, where did you go?
Oh no. Yes. I love it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening. And I will see you in the next episode.
Bye guys.